You're watching Truth versus Hype. Tonight, revealing the names of bank defaulters which the RBI and the Prime Minister's office do not want you to know about. The context is this. Controversy has broken out after the Central Information Commission sent a notice to the RBI and the PMO over their reluctance to reveal the name of top bank defaulters. The notice referred to a Supreme Court order which had overridden the RBI's objections in making these names public. The order also referred to a list given by Raghuram Rajan, former head of the RBI, in early 2015 to the Prime Minister's office of names of defaulters, or rather fraudsters. Neither the RBI or the PMO have responded to queries over their reluctance to reveal these names. But here's the thing. The RBI's guidelines stipulate that banks are meant to share this list of defaulters with the public, directly or through credit rating agencies. So we looked at the websites of India's top 10 public and private sector banks to see what information, if at all, they'd made public. Of these, only 4 public sector banks had put up lists of willful defaulters on their websites with the amount that they were due. So the listing is imperfect, but here is what we could uncover, starting with the Punjab National Bank, which is the biggest in terms of defaulters, over 1,000 of them, amounting to about 23,000 crores of defaults. This includes, of course, the Mehul Choksi Nirav Modi companies, that comes to about 7,500 crores. The Winsome group of companies, also jewelers, about 1,600 crores, of which Jatin Mehta is one of the directors. A company called Kudos Chemi, about 1,300 crores. Then, of course, Kingfisher Airlines, 600 crores. The Bank of Baroda has also put up some data of about 300 defaulters owing about 6,200 crores. Of this, the top names include Rotomac Global, the pen company, 457 crores. Again, Kingfisher with about over 400 crores. A company called ABC Cotspin, 362 crores. And another company, Ray Agro, 318 crores. IDBI Bank as well has listed about over 150 defaulters amounting to 11,000 crores, which includes Amtech Auto with about 1,500 crores, EPC Constructions 900 crores, S. Kumar's 830 crores, and Kingfisher also making it to that list. And finally, Syndicate Bank, 200 defaulters, 200 plus defaulters, about 1,000 crores of defaults. Again, the top defaulters includes the Forever Precious Group, Zilog Systems, companies like Nakoda Limited and Zoom Developers, who are a mix of jewelry, real estate, infrastructure broadly in those lists of defaulters that have been named and shamed. But look at the banks that have not listed any data, which includes the State Bank of India, which is India's biggest bank, as well as Bank of India, Canara Bank, and a number of others that we've listed on the screen. None of the private banks have listed any defaulters. So in total, based purely on what banks have disclosed, it comes to about 1,800 defaulters and about 40,000 crore rupees of willful defaults. Now this, as we've just explained to you, is an underestimation because several banks haven't put out their numbers. But we do have aggregate numbers based on official data to the Lok Sabha from July this year, which shows that the actual defaulters are almost 10 times higher than what is publicly available. The total defaulters are 9,500 and the total amount owed is 1.3 lakh crores, which is 3 times higher than the information we could cull from these websites. And also, what the Lok Sabha tells us, worryingly, is that defaults are rising, and they are rising rapidly. The total number of defaulters are up by 14%, and the total amount is up by almost 70%. Now, all this suggests that while some names are there on the websites of these banks in the public domain, there are many, many more willful defaulters who perhaps owe even bigger amounts that remain unnamed. Are those names with the RBI? Are they with the Prime Minister's office? We simply don't know. Okay, let's go across now to our panel. I have here in the studio with me Gurcharan Das, who's a former CEO of Procter & Gamble and now a writer, a scholar, a thinker. Also joining us, Tamal Bandyopadhyay, consulting editor, Business Standard, joining us from Mumbai, someone who's very, very well conversant with the banking system. Vipin Malik, former director of the RBI and chartered accountant, joining us. And from Skype, Devinder Sharma, food and trade policy analyst, because there's this entire debate about the manner in which banks and big financial institutions treat corporate debt versus how they treat agricultural debt and debt of those who are at the lower end of the economic spectrum. Let me just start by asking you, Tamal, because you know the banking system and you also understand how the RBI works.
Yeah.
Why do you think that there's this reluctance to make these names public, either by the RBI or the Prime Minister's office, given that at least some of the names, as we've just put, with the information we put out, are unlikely to be big surprises? Many of these are known names and known companies.
Yeah, thanks, Sridhi. Give me a little time to give the perspective. The first point is this concept willful defaulter is very unique in India. Nowhere in the world you have this concept of willful defaulter. Right? Similarly, that also the technical write-off again is related to bad assets, again unique to India. Nowhere in the world you have this. So it's very difficult to have it in the global perspective, any discussion.
Right.
That's point number one. Point number two is this: who decides willful defaulter? What is the definition? Definition is you have ability to pay, but you are not paying. Now, who decides on that? And even I have diverted money. Money has no color. So that's a very confusing thing.
This is the RBI
now,
definition that you're reading out.
Is it criminal? I mean, again, there is no no, I'm just saying also there is no criminality involved. If I have diverted fund, etc., is it a criminal offense? Again, in Indian banking law, this is very vague. Okay, and also this entire making defaulters list or anything else, it's not part of the Banking Regulation Act. In fact, Banking Regulation Act is silent about this, but others like Bank Nationalization Act, State Bank of India Act, etc., talks about what you call the so-called fiduciary responsibility, or the contract between a bank, the lender, and the borrower prevents the banks.
But Tamal,
what do you call
sorry to interrupt,
bound by secrecy
Tamal,
or whatsoever.
Yes, Tamal, I appreciate what you're saying, but just to quickly jump in there, the Supreme Court actually has overruled some of those concerns of the RBI about this business of fiduciary responsibility.
No. Srini, again,
and it actually said that there's no problem in disclosing names.
I'm coming to that. Look at the Look at the Supreme Court judgment in the detail. It begins saying certain things, and when it ends, it's not very clear. So I am not getting into a contempt of court, anything like that. But to say that Supreme Court has indeed told that this defaulters list should be made public, it's not correct interpretation. I'm requesting you to go through this. Having said that, my point is, which Dr. Raghuram Rajan also said, and he did say in his interface with the analysts post monetary policy conference in 2016, we should make it public, but use our discretion where there is genuine reason persons are not been able to pay. Let's leave those names out, but the rest of the names should be made public. And I think that's the right way to go about it.
Gurcharan Das, you are familiar with the workings of corporate India. Do you think that this business of naming and shaming works, or doesn't work?
Well, there's now fortunately a registry of which is used by all banks, NBFCs, and what it shows is the capability of the person to pay back a loan. And this is being used very, very extensively. And these names who have not paid should be in that registry. And it should be now. The naming and
should it only be within the banking and the financial system, or should it be in public domain, as now increasingly many are demanding?
Yes, I think since we are a democracy, so there's certainly there's nothing wrong to know what the credit worthiness of a person is. Everyone who gives a loan to someone wants to know the credit worthiness of the person. So I totally agree with you.
And also, it's not just about credit worthiness, because I think what has come up here is also the question of exactly how banks are dealing with this money, public money, which is entrusted to them. And as Tamal was saying, that perhaps definitionally one could quibble over what a willful defaulter is or not. But when you see a number of instances of high profile defaulters, fraudsters, who've essentially fled this country, who owe banks crores of rupees, and where there does seem to be prima facie some evidence of criminality.
Now, you know,
doesn't that bolster the case then for public transparency?
Yeah, the bigger question now is that this government has made many mistakes, like the demonetization, etc. But one good thing it has done is the bankruptcy law and the insolvency law.
Right.
That, if you read the proceedings of the NCLT courts, which are really being effective, a lot of people are losing their companies right now.
No,
and they've begun to pay back also their loans. And all I want to tell you is that is actually showing us exactly what you're talking about.
How to sort of recover.
Yes.
But okay, let me just go across to Vipin Malik.
And that should be publicized.
Well, we actually did report on it, and there is some quibble over exactly how much is being recovered. At the moment, banks are taking a very high haircut, even out of the IBC. They're taking a 60 to 70% haircut. But anyway, perhaps the process will improve.
Some people have lost their companies.
Some people have lost their companies. Vipin Malik, former RBI director, why is the RBI so reluctant to part with this information? Raghuram Rajan has given names to the Prime Minister's office. Now we have the Information Commissioner saying disclose the names. Why are they reluctant to do it, in your view?
There are two reasons, could be two reasons. One is that all these, the bad fishes, or defaulters, willful or otherwise, could be that they are politically very much linked.
Right.
After all these companies have made huge political donations.
Right.
Whichever the government is in power.
Right.
So when they become defaulters, the political parties help them in covering up their operations.
Yes.
And second is that sometimes what happens is that there are economic conditions also. When economic conditions are bad and Reserve Bank and the government feels that because of the economic conditions, disclosing the names will affect the whole country's mirror worldwide. So that is another reason that they do not want to disclose the names.
Okay.
But let me tell you my experience.
Yes.
I was in year 2000 or earlier, was on the board of IFCI. IFCI had the biggest defaulters list. And in spite of our best efforts and legal notices, we could not recover.
Okay.
So what I decided, I was the chairman audit committee. So what I said that now you do one thing. Go to the chairman and MDs of these defaulter companies at their home and take the dholwala, and that dholwala should start from the colony where he lives until that, and every Sunday they should go and put out that dhol and say that this man is a defaulter, so please be careful on dealing with that.
And it happened?
Can I tell you, Srinivas, that we could recover substantial portion because of that?
Oh my God!
So you had to take such actions. What to talk about? I did that, and I was very successful on that recovery.
Okay, that's a novel approach. Take a dhol and go in and bajao it outside the homes of defaulters. Can I just bring in? Can I just bring in Devendra Sharma?
And we were paying something like per 5,000 rupees per day, and 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the evening.
It saves you hundreds of crores of lawyers' fees. Lawyers won't be very happy. Devendra Sharma, if I can just bring you in, because you've been arguing that there is this double standards, and let's actually put up some of those figures, because as debt rises, and we know that NPAs are rising, non-performing assets are rising, we know how much gets written off. If you look at it in terms of gross bad debt at the moment is almost hit 8 lakh crores. But agricultural debt, of which so much is made, is only 62,000 crores. But yet, we hear instance after instance of farmers being arrested, thrown in jail, harassed in a way which is, it seems, much more intense than the sort of response that you get if you are higher up on the corporate ladder.
Well, I think you are Right, and the way I see it, it's a scandal. It's a huge scandal in which there's a deep-rooted nexus between politicians and even the economists, and also the people who don't spare any movement to be on the back of the corporates, and they all join hands and they try to give you an idea as if oh my God, this is something which is unavoidable, and so the people are under stress and so on. Tell me one thing: if Srinivas, you and me are under debt from a bank, I'm sure your lifestyle would come down. You will be selling off your car, maybe you're selling off a part of your house or land or something to make up for the loss that you are incurring. But do you ever see that happening in a corporate? They have their own lavish style. They travel abroad. They get haircuts, very convenient haircuts, and their life goes on as usual. In fact, they get rid of their burden, and they go easily off the hook. Now look at the farmers. On the other hand, we have hundreds and hundreds of farmers, hundreds of thousands of farmers in this country who are actually behind the bars, and the fault is what? Somebody is defaulting on 1 lakh rupees, somebody on 2 lakh, somebody on 9 lakh, and whatever. These are the kinds of defaults on which farmers are put in jail. Their names are put on the Tehsil headquarters, their pictures are also there. It looks as if they are terrorists. Look for them. Then their properties are being seized. One day or the other they'll come and do it, and that's one reason why more farmers commit suicide, because they can't withstand the humiliation that comes along with it.
Okay,
then finally, we find that let's say, I give you an example of Punjab. Punjab, the Punjab Agriculture Development Bank had issued notices to about 75,000 farmers. For what? For default. And default of one kist. It's one installment they're defaulting, not the entire amount. Okay. And then what happens is they put up the bounce check. They take the vacant checks or blank checks from these farmers, and then they know he can't pay back.
Okay,
and then they submit that check, and that becomes a criminal case. Okay. And then you put them behind bars.
Okay, my argument
is, why can't the same process be applied for the corporates? Let them also go behind bars, and believe me, all money will come out.
Okay.
All money will come out.
All right, Gurcharan Das has his hand up.
Yeah.
Gurcharan.
I think let's not make it a bleeding heart story of fat corporates and poor farmers. The reality is...
Why not?
No, because two wrongs don't make a right. The reality is that when you take a loan from anyone, I take a loan from you, it's a promise that I will pay you back. So whoever does not pay back there should be consequences. Now the fact is that
but isn't the double standards though that's what makes it?
I know it's staring us in the face. But listen for a minute.
Yes.
That the reality is this farm loan waivers are a very bad thing. They have done more damage to people who have paid back their loans because they have realized that they were fools to pay back their loans.
Okay.
But
we're not on waivers though.
Yeah, but so I'm not again. I know, and we're not on waivers, but the principle is the same. Now, what you need to do, the original sin in all this is the fact that you should have used this banking crisis to denationalize some of the most rotten banks.
Right.
We have good public sector banks, and we have really rotten public sector banks.
Yes.
Now they're talking about combining them.
Right.
So you hide the problem.
Right.
And what you're going to do is you're going to weaken the good ones.
Right.
And what I would have done is taken the 10 worst public sector banks with the worst NPAs
and privatize them.
And just bring the government shareholding down to 49%. And it would have sent such a powerful signal.
Okay.
This was an original sin from Indira Gandhi's time.
Okay.
And this government, we hoped, would have the guts to do the things.
Instead, they're locked in a...
and we are, look at the...
They're locked. Let me just go to Tamal for that. Instead, Tamal Bandyopadhyay, the government is locked in almost, it seems, a fight to the finish with the RBI over precisely actually some of these issues.
Tell me what exactly you want me to say. I mean, what's your question?
My question really is, what is the way out that you see? Because, I mean, at a time when you really need the regulator, you need all the gatekeepers to be firing all cylinders. They seem to be now locked in this sort of, almost death race with the RBI. Both sides are trying to stare each other down. And as of now, as we know, the government is always going to win. Yeah.
No, Srini, I think this is yes, indeed there are serious differences of opinion, and for the first time in the history of Reserve Bank of India, at least since 1949, when this particular clause came into section 7, which empowers the RBI, which empowers the government to direct RBI, has come in force. So it is quite grave, it is quite serious. But the point to note is this section, which you call it section 7 in RBI, and it calls something else in other regulators, whether it's SEBI, whether it's TRAI, whether it is any other, this power of the government is always there. In every constitutionally government owns this power.
Yeah.
But here the difference is government cannot do anything without consulting the Reserve Bank of India. So that's the unique part of it. So this we believe that consultation is on, but the unfortunate part is it's in the open. What should be within the closed door?
Yeah.
I mean, a husband and wife, it's a very wrong simile, but can fight. But yes. Outside you have to hold hand, yes, and smile and say all are fine. But here this is not the case. Yeah, it's all in the, that's unfortunate part. Now what's going to happen? What's going to happen is it's anybody's guess, but I think good sense will prevail, and there will be some way, some kind of approach more, at least for the time being. But we can't.
Let's hope so. Can I get
afford to do that? But one very important point. Srini, just one
very quickly.
Important point I want to make is very clear that apart from the thing how much money you give to government, etc., there are other points which are regulatory issues like relaxing the PCA norms, etc., etc.
Very quickly, do you agree with Gurcharan Das that that's really the only way out?
I say further to what Mr. Gurcharan Das is saying. Not only privatize the rotten banks, privatize all the nationalized banks.
I mean, it's
all nationalized banks should be provided. Why is it a government business to own the banks?
Right.
Let it be owned by the people at large of this country.
Okay.
And after all, this is a depositor's money.
No country
and depositor's money is being used for the write-offs of the loans, bad loans, and where there is a vested interest.
Right. Okay.
So
let's just get last word from Devender Sharma, and then I have to wrap.
Rather, I at one day, when this 2004, to this finance minister, I had written a letter to him that the first thing you should do is to privatize the banks.
Okay, Devender Sharma, we have to leave it there. And then
bring it to 49%.
Devender Sharma.
Allow me, Srinivasan. I think it would be disastrous if we privatize the national banks. What about ICICI Bank? It is in terrible trouble. Should we nationalize that bank? And why should we nationalize that bank? It is not doing well. Look at Chanda Kochar. She is still free. I don't understand how can you apply two kinds of principles for the public sector banks and the private sector banks. Lehman Brothers was not a nationalized bank. So private sector also has its problems, and let's not bring in private sector and problem onto the entire banking system.
No country in the world has 70% of its assets in the run by the government.
We've opened up a new front about a debate on nationalizing banks or not, and that's perhaps outside the limits of this show, or at least the time limit that we have. But thank you all so much for joining us. We will continue to track the story, but that's all the time we have on Truth versus Hype. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.